Mhm. Blessings, everyone. Good evening. So great to see you. Well, I can't actually see you, but so great to be here with you on this beautiful Sunday evening. Oh, I'm streaming to you live from Naples, Florida. My name is Reverend Denise Schubert, and you are joining me on Sunday Night Alive. We come together, Sunday Night Alive. We come together to practice some practical spirituality and to remember who we really are and to see how it is that we might elevate ourselves so that we can be happier and more useful human beings on the planet. So if you're here, say hi. Yes. So hi, Toby. Nice to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're on um, we're on a 7-week series that I called Radical Self-Care. And I haven't diverted tonight, but I actually had a deep realization that true self-care, true self-care, true uh, care of the self starts with celebrating ourselves. So I decided that we're going to talk about celebrating ourselves tonight. Now, I promise you, before we end the self-care series, I will have a list of 10 things you can do to practice radical self-care for yourself during the holiday season and beyond. Uh, so if you've been waiting for the list of things, I promise you it is coming. So I have some very exciting news before I dive into our topic for this evening. I have been guided to and honored the guidance I received to leave my post at Unity of Naples at the end of this year. They are actually in the middle of a transition, and Reverend Carla McClellan is there from Unity, and she's wonderful, and she can really hold down that fort without me. So I'm going to do a couple of things. One is I'm going to go back to South Africa for the months of from February 11th to March 11th. And I'm doing that because for those of you who know me, have spent many, 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 many months in South Africa, and my host there just had a baby girl. And I think I'm its godmother or its grandmother or something like that. So I'm going to go visit. I'm also going to teach a 6-week masterclass on Zoom for 6 weeks starting in January. And I'll show you that later and just invite you all to step in. I've been really longing to work with people more closely and leaving Unity. I'll have a chance to actually do that and write this book that's been wanting to be written for a really long time. So anyway, stay tuned for all of that. It's very good news. I'm feeling very good about it. Hi, Heather, Jan, and Dina. So nice to see you all. So it's good, right? Life is good. The holidays are good. I hope you're moving through them with ease and grace, enjoying what's there to be enjoying, not getting too caught up in the craziness of it. In fact, let me pray us in, and we will dive into our topic tonight. Celebrate yourself. So important to living a life that's meaningful and purposeful and happy, and also uh, how we participate in ending violence and ending all of the things that we're tired of reading about on the news or experiencing for ourselves, for that matter. So, all right, take a breath. Take a deep breath, maybe the deepest breath you've taken all day long. The breath allows us to ground ourselves. It allows us to turn within. It allows us to acknowledge our connection to ourselves. It allows us to pause for a moment in the busyness. And as we turn within, we cannot help, if you turn within enough, you cannot help but come face to face with that within you, which is different than your personality. That is some aspect of yourself, some essence of yourself, some truth of yourself that is divine. It is within you. It is the source of your love, the source of your peace, the source of your creativity, the source of your inspiration. It is that part of you which transcends the human doingness and is the essence and source of your beingness. And so we are wanting to tap into that in every moment of every day in every way, because it is that which leads us into a life of spiritual power. It is that which leads us into caring for the self in powerful and meaningful ways. And so, for the blessings of being together tonight and all that we experience and and talk about and hear and share and think about is a blessing. And so, we're grateful for that. So we let it be, and so it is. All right. Well, I am happy to celebrate with you tonight. I actually was. Uh, I just realized that there are things to do in radical self care. There are things to do, and the original topic for radical self care really came from my own personal experience, where I was in a position where I was needing to pay more attention to what was wanting to emerge through me than what was wanting to emerge through the tribe. I was being pushed to see what it was I needed to do to experience increased levels of happiness and peace. And, our greatest teacher is really our own life. Yes, always. There is something, you know, you've heard me say 1,000 times that you are maintained and sustained, guided and guarded by God. And in that maintaining and sustaining and guiding and guarding, we receive intuitive messages, we receive feelings, we receive thoughts, we receive ideas, and all of those need to be paid attention to. And they're very hard to pay attention to if you're not celebrating yourself, right? If you're not focused on your sacred self, your spiritual identity, the truth of you, then you're not going to hear those messages, and you might not obey them, which is really not a great thing, because uh, uh, we have a trajectory through this incarnation, which is designed in a co-creative way uh, for us to accomplish. But in order to do that, we have to be paying attention. I love Eric Butterworth said, God is not in you like a raisin in a roll, like not a somewhere like poked in your heart, but rather like a wave on the ocean. The wave is nothing more or less than the ocean formed into the shape of a wave. So God is in you like a wave is in the ocean. So it's so very important to really honor and celebrate that. So that's what Celebrate Yourself is. It's a book written by Eric Butterworth called Celebrate Yourself. It's beautiful. You can put it on your list of books to. And celebrate, the word celebrate means to honor yourself. And also other words are appreciate, dignify, ennoble, glorify. And most of the time live kind of in the antonym of that. We're blaming ourselves, reproaching ourselves, castigating ourselves, criticizing ourselves. And it's amazing how well we do, considering how little time we really spend, and how it's not really okay in our culture to really not be other focused, but to be self-focused. But I believe that to be self-focused means to be aware of our divinity and walk that spiritual path. Charles Fillmore, the founder of Unity, said life for each of us should be a journey in jubilance, a journey in jubilance, a journey in celebration, a journey in happiness. Now, can we all be happy? No, terrible things happen. I mean, I've had so many friends this month who have lost loved ones through death or accidents, many friends who have been diagnosed with illnesses. I'm telling you, life throws, right at us. And uh, we have to, a life of spiritual power is a life where you navigate all of those diagnoses, all of those tragedies, all of those losses, that we embrace them and experience them in kind of an authentic, deep, meaningful way. And doing so adds such a depth of beauty and meaning and sweetness and poignancy to what can otherwise be a life spent paying the bills and being exhausted. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there's something about all of those things come with life. We're not being spiritual doesn't mean those things don't happen. Being spiritual does not mean you get everything you want. Being spiritual does not mean everything works out exactly the way that you want it. But it does give you a kind of elegance and a kind of capacity to move through those events without self-destructing, without homicide or suicide. Gives us a way to move through it, understanding the eternality and immortality of our souls and of this experience. I like to say that I didn't really come to have a relationship with God myself until well into my 40s. And until then, I was worried about a lot of things on the planet, a lot of things about other people. And then I've just come to realize that we are cradled by immortality and eternality and the infinite. That God is in charge of trees and planets and moons and suns. God's in charge of our life. God's in charge of babies and elephants. And our charge, we're not in charge of those things, but our challenge as a species, as human being incarnated spirits, is to um, love, and is to bring love to the trees and bring love to the elephants and bring love to the animals and the plants and to bring love to ourselves. So our charge is to take care of that which is left in our care, not to be so arrogant as to think that we are more powerful than God and can somehow abolish trees, where we don't have that kind of power, but we do have the kind of power to create some mischief where God then has to intervene, and she will, I assure you. So in this idea of self-care, we have to start really with the question of who are we? Who are we? Who are you? And Carl Jung said, the decisive question for man, I don't know why there were no women when these men were alive. It's just amazing to me the way they wrote. But the decisive question for us is, are we related to something infinite or not? That is he says, this is the telling question of this life. If we understand and feel that here in this life, we already have a link with the infinite, our desires and our attitudes will change. So in my mind, in my view, there's really nothing more important than transcendence of the human self. Nothing. There's nothing more we can do for humanity, nothing more we can do for trees, nothing more we can do for ourselves, and to really truly understand that the infinite um, doesn't have anything to do with time. It has to do with essence or being. And you are already infinite. You are already eternal. You are already whole and perfect and complete, made exactly in the way that God made you. And from that place, we can then move into life in a really much more powerful way. Now, does that take some practice? Yes. Does it take some attention? Yes. Does it take a change of heart about things? Do you have to change your mind sometimes? Yes. So I'm not saying it's particularly easy, but it definitely is possible, and it's definitely worth doing. So now, don't confuse your personality with your soul's character. It's very easy to think that that who we are in these bodies is who we are in eternity, because part of the human journey is to acquire a personality in this lifetime, which we all have done. Some of us, and you all know, you have friends like I do, you have family members like I do. Some of them have really nice human personalities, and some of them have, not so nice, right? Some that are really easy to cozy up to, and some not so easy to cozy up to. But don't confuse the human personality with the divine reality because they're different. You know, the ego really, truly, what the ego by design, the personality, the created personality by design is not in any way designed to celebrate you. It's designed to keep us humble and puny and playing small and feeling shame and blame and guilt and remorse and regret. There's something kind of inherently like a mean girl about the ego to ourselves and other people as well. As the ego is just full of judgment. But the ego is not who we are. And your worthiness to be celebrated is not dependent upon the ego. You are not to be celebrated because of the presence of your personality. You're to be celebrated because of the presence of God, because of the presence of perfection inside of you, within you. That which you represent, it's actually, the truth is, God's not in you, you're in God. So if you, let me say that again in a different way. It's easy to think, so how we're raised, the cultural belief is that God's out here, right? And you're over here. And so if I say, and I don't correct myself, if I say there's a piece of God in you, it looks like somehow God, uh, it's like it was what Eric Butterworth said. It's not like God's in you like a raisin in a roll. It's more like God's the ocean, like God's the all around us, and you are a wave. So we are actually inside of God. We are in God's consciousness, not God's not in ours. That's a very big concept, but if you sit with it for a minute, if you think about it for a minute, you'll see, oh, another good analogy is that we are the fish in the water. So we're swimming around in a sea of divinity, thinking that we have to find God. Oh, let's go find God. I want to discover God within me. I want to go see, I'm going to go on a quest to see if I can find the divine. And in truth, the divine's already in you. You're already in the divine. You're swimming in it. It's like you want to go to the fish and go, wake up, wake up. Quit looking for the water. You're in the water. So I think it was the Dalai Lama who said that the real pandemic in life is self-loathing. And he said that self-loathing, self-hatred, it's a big word, but I can relate to it myself. I kind of got a glimpse of what that feels like when I quit smoking, like because I was an emotional smoker. And you'll know what I mean if most of us have to transcend something like this. So if you're an emotional eater, emotional worrier, an emotional smoker, an emotional alcohol, whatever, alcohol drinker, whatever it is, um, if you stop doing that behavior, then everything you do it for, all the reasons you do it for are going to arise in you. So I was just amazed when I quit smoking how self-loathing appeared, like, whoa, who all knew that that was in there? Like, who all, I mean, I had no idea that there was so little self-regard, so little self-respect, so little self-care, right? So, it, but this self-loath, the Dalai Lama says that self-loathing is the source, is in back of murder, is in back of suicide, is in back of divorce, is in back of abuse. It's just in back of everything that this lack of honoring or celebrating the self. So I do believe that ultimately our journey of awakening, our journey into our spiritual awareness of our true identity in God or in the ocean is self-love, is the true embracing of how wonderful and how beautiful we are. There's this beautiful story, Chanticleer. It was a Chanticleer, the Rooster by Edmund Roston, Rostand. And it's a story about a rooster who he was such a great rooster. He was like the best rooster ever. Big, full voice, beautiful, big, beautiful strutting, beautiful feathers. He was he was just the hero of the barnyard. He was such a great rooster. And he would wake up every morning in the dark and he would jump up on his fence and he would cock-a-doodle-doo. He would sing his song and then the sun would rise. And it was he was just such a proud, beautiful rooster causing the morning to come. And one day, he actually annoyed some of the forest animals. Have you guys ever heard the story of Chanticleer? Anyway, you have now. So one day, he was annoying all the forest creatures with his noisiness because all the nocturnal animals, the owls and the foxes, they want to sleep when the sun comes up. They don't want some rooster waking them up. So one day, the fox came out before the sun came up and he snatched Chanticleer in his grips and ran into the forest with the rooster. So as it turns out, something happened. I can't remember what happened, but the Chanticleer, the rooster, got away. And so he runs back to the barnyard, but to his dismay, to his utter devastation, the sun was rising. And he was so confused because he thought he was the source of the sun rising every morning, that he was convinced that without him there was no sun, that he caused it to happen. So he was very depressed for a while, but but then but then he realized that he didn't have to stop celebrating just because he wasn't the source of the sunrise. Just because he didn't cause the day to happen didn't mean he couldn't celebrate it. So as soon as he had that realization that he was a part of everything, not the source of everything, then he started crowing the morning in again, not because he was causing it, but because he was celebrating it. I like this story very much because it's like us, a celebration consciousness, a consciousness of celebration. It not only celebrates what is out there, but also celebrates what is within. So Chanticleer the rooster made the journey from celebrating something beautiful that was happening on the outside to something beautiful that was happening on the inside. So this celebration of ourselves, and by the way, in real life, I'm trying to think out how to word this, in real life, in our relationships, in our family systems, in our employment systems, in our education systems, in our lives, it is, I would say that there is an unconscious agreement, an unspoken agreement that it's not really great to think too highly of yourself. That's not really great to put yourself above other people. It's a little bit started the whole radical self-care series. It's like in some ways you want to play small so as not to, for other people to think you're better, think you're better than everyone else or that you have something other people don't have. Obviously, we don't want to think that or project that or act like that. But the truth is that unless you celebrate yourself, unless you honor yourself, and what were the other words? Or honor, uh, to honor, dignify, ennoble. Unless you do that, you will not make the decisions that work in your best interests. You will not move in the direction of your dreams. You will not sacrifice the lesser for the greater. You will not move out of obligation or compromise into unfettered self expression. But you must do this because if you are not a human being only, if you are a spiritual entity, right, that's decided to incarnate in a body within the consciousness of the all good, uh, in this 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years you have on inside this body. And listen, I just had a nephew who passed last week at 43. I had a friend's father who died this past 2 weeks at 80. We just really, really don't know how long our dash is from appearance to disappearance. We don't know. Uh, but uh, uh, if we are here with a spiritual intention or a spiritual purpose, and it doesn't matter whether you know what that is or don't know what that is, but if you accept that you are a spiritual being and that your job is to awaken and to discover the divinity within you, you're never going to do that if you are capitulating to society in at every turn. You'll just never do it. So it's really, really important to pay attention to yourself, to what you want, to what you think, to what you dream, to what you desire, to how to uh, the quiet, not so quiet clues that come to you from the universe. Meditation is so important, not because it it brings God to you, but because it allows us to listen. It allows us to capture in consciousness that which is ours to do. And then the obedience to do it takes courage, because you might have to step away from people. You might have to step away from situations. You might have to make yourself more important than something else. Yes. Um, so I'm just sorry. I'm just looking at my notes here, making sure I want to give you everything good. Let's see. Let's see. I did do some quotes for you. So Rumi shares this. He says, "We know the value of every article of merchandise, but if you don't know the value of your own soul, it's all foolishness." And he's just speaking to, have any of you ever kind of hit that point where you've just eaten enough food or done enough shopping or drank enough wine or went to enough traveled enough that you're just like, okay, okay, I've done all that. Okay, now what? Now what? Now what will be meaningful? What will bring me joy? And Rumi's talking about that. He's just saying that we listen to the internet, we gather facts, we keep our bookkeeping, but if we don't know the value of our own soul, then it will all seem very foolish. And I assure you, I've worked with enough people in hospice situations where the only thing that matters, I'm telling you, the only thing that matters in that last breath, which by the way is not your last life, it's not the end of life, it's just your last body's breath. But if you it all that really matters in the end is love. That's it. All that really matters is that you were authentic, you were real, you were loved, you were loving, you you experienced your life, you were authentic, you were real. Truly, that's all that matters. And it's all that matters to the people who love you. The people who die most peacefully are the people who are complete with their children and their grandchildren and themselves, where they are happy, where they can say, I did it my way, you know, which, which is, God's way, that they recognize the divinity that they were and that they lived that. It's my mission. Is it yours? It's my mission. Eric Butterworth says, when you celebrate your life, you become a participant. You become a conscious channel for the cosmic flow. Now, the cosmic flow is the idea and the fact that everything that you could ever need or want or utilize or employ or have or delight in, or everything you need to exist and thrive, is the cosmic flow. And it's always flowing to you. It's around us. We're swimming. It's like the water. It's like the water to the fish. Our good is in the ethers. And when we open to receiving through celebrating ourselves, which means to be in a space of worthiness and allowing that we begin to partake in that good. So it is only through our thoughts about ourselves and lives that we resist, that we push, that we block the flow of good that is forever trying to find its way into our experience. Carl Jung, one of the greatest spiritual psychologists of all time, says the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you really are, right? Who you really are. And don't confuse yourself. Don't confuse your divine self with your ego self, because that is because that is not who you really are. So, in our journey of radical self-care this month, just begin to notice this week. Just begin to notice where, uh, if you if you were in a space of celebrating yourself, honoring yourself, listening to yourself, receiving, if that would change anything that you think, or if that would change anything that you do, or if that would change any way that you are being. Now, there are things to do, like we talked about in this first or second week, we talked about the body. And obviously there are things you can do to care for your body. Obviously, eat good, healthy, unprocessed foods. Drink gobs and gobs and gobs of water. Take care of your teeth. Take care of your feet. Exercise. Right. Um, the body is a uh, temporary how it's a temporary house for you, but it's temporary, like everything in the third dimension is temporary. No, everything's temporary. Elephants are temporary, trees are temporary. Nothing here is permanent or eternal. We are all here in a momentary moment of celebration and jubilation. Um, but because of that, there are things you can do that will make your body happier than things that if you don't do it. But the doing is always an expression of being. Being comes first, doing comes second. Context comes first, content comes second. Idea comes first, fulfillment comes second. So you don't want to deal with this secondary level of doing before you've handled the being. So I wanted to deal with celebrating yourself because it has to do with going back to the source. It has to do with going back to if you were to love yourself. So if you were to love yourself the same way that you would love a child or care for an infant, how would that affect the doingness of your day-to-day living? And I'm dedicating the rest of my life, however long that is, as I have been for the past 20 years, I'm dedicating my life to really exploring with people what it means to walk their divinity in such a way that it leads to a life that is so pleasing, no matter how old you are, no matter how young you are, no matter what gender you are, no matter how much money you have, that this life is here to experience it, this life is here to is celebrate. If you can celebrate you, you can celebrate life. If you cannot celebrate you, you will not celebrate life. So we're going to start with celebrating ourselves, and we're doing that tonight. And then we have 2 more weeks on this series, and then I'm going to New Year's Eve next. The next 2 weeks we'll deal with. I'll give you some lists because you like them. And on New Year's Eve, I'm going to do a special New Year's Eve stream on creating the big idea for 2024. I think remember, I just said the big idea leads to content. The big idea, the being leads to doing. The context leads to content. So there's something in your soul emerging for 2024. Like if 2024 could be whatever you wanted it to be about, a big idea, what would that be? I'm going to deal with that this year with you on December 31st. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to pray us out in a minute out of this tonight's stream. Let me show you. I want you to mark your calendars and think if you want to do this 6-week course with me. I'm calling it Walking the Path of Your Divinity. It's going to be on Thursday nights from January 6th to February 8th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom, because I want to do I want to do in-depth work. Um, uh, and then I'm going to follow it up with, when I'm back in Africa, we're going to continue meeting at 6 p.m. on Thursday nights on Zoom as a support group for no charge. It'll just be my gift to you while I'm in Africa. This Zoom class will have $100. It's truly a love offering of $100. And next week, I'll have the way for you to register for that if you'd like to actually partake in it. And I hope you will. I'd love to see 10 people come into community with me and really spend that time walking the path of your divinity. It's awesome. If you want to support my ministry, and I would love that you would, of course, you can go to my website, which is deniseschubert.com. You can do donations on PayPal, Zelle, or Venmo. If you want spiritual support of any kind, prayer, one-on-one prayer with your ears on the phone, or we can do a Zoom connection, or it's email, just reach out to me at revdschubert@gmail.com. So, are you going to celebrate yourself this week? Are you? Say yes. The right answer is yes. Yes, because you are worth celebrating. You are beautiful. You are beautiful. You are worthy. You are so magnificent, extraordinary human being. You are. And everyone has that light within them. Everyone has um, extraordinary gifts to give to other people. Everyone. There are no exceptions. No, even the worst people in the whole world, when they awaken to their divinity within them, let me word that the right way. When they awaken to the divinity they are in, awaken to the divinity that they came from, awaken to the truth that they are unique and individualized expressions of the divine, that's totally worth celebrating. Yes. So be happy and turn within with me one more time as I speak a word of prayer for you and about you. Just simply taking a moment to recognize that we live in a universe worth celebrating, that in this moment we can turn away from the news, we can turn away from the negativity, we can turn away from the naysayers, we can turn away from the faithless, we can turn away from the pessimists and the cynics and the skeptics. That is a point of view. It doesn't have to be our point of view. It doesn't have to be your point of view. Your point of view is going to determine your experience on this earth. And so in this moment, I invite us all to turn within to the presence of the divine, in which we live and move and have our being, and which lives and moves and has its beingness in, through, and as our individual personal lives. And I know that it is through that connection that we are gathered here tonight. It is through that connection that we experience and express love. It is through that connection that we experience and express peace. It's through that connection that we have the capacity to change lives, our own and others. We have the capacity to change the earth. We have the capacity to change the hearts of men and women everywhere through our commitment, our dedication, our commitment to spiritual principles and to walking our walk. And so what I know for you and accept for you is the truth that sets you free, that you are worthy of celebration, that you are wholly and perfectly complete in this moment, free of blame, free of shame, free of guilt, free of anything that the human personality, ego, or the consciousness of fear would have us think. So we repudiate any connection to those ideas and we step into a new idea and a new way of being for the year. 2024 is going to be the best year ever for each and every person within the sound of my voice. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity to do this work. I'm grateful for the calling to do this work. I'm grateful for your partnership in forming a virtual community every Sunday night to remind ourselves so that we can go into our week a little brighter, a little lighter, and a little more loving. And so for this and so much more, I'm grateful, releasing this word I'm speaking into the manifestation principle that only and ever says yes. And I take the yes on faith, on proven faith, and simply leave this time of prayer accepting and expecting the results. And so it is. Amen. Okay, well, very wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I will have a way for you to join my Zoom class in January. Please, if you have friends who would like to come, it's open to everybody. I promise you it's going to be deep. It's going to be practical. It's going to have some homework. It's going to be worth your time and effort and really kick off your new year in a wonderful, wonderful way. If you need to reach out to me this week, do so. Otherwise, I will see you next Sunday at 6 p.m. on Sunday Night Live. Peace and blessings.